Hi guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful rancy room for all things Formula 1. So the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix has come to a close, and what could be said, it wasn't the most exciting race in the world, was it really? Some nice charges through the field from the likes of Max and Charles to a certain extent, I suppose. But the FIA just turned it all into a farce once again, didn't they? But we'll get into that in a second, of course. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes on offer for some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the very rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Room standings then. They're on the screen now for you. All much of a muchness. They are just what I awarded at the Bahrain Grand Prix, of course. This weekend, though, it could mix things up, and this is where it's all going to start to shuffle. Your favourite driver could go up, could go down from here. Ooh, it's all going to be exciting. We've got a lot of races left. There's a lot more ranting and shouting to come, and I cannot wait to get my teeth sunk into it. So, as always, we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner, Max Verstappen. Oh, no, hang on a minute. It wasn't Max. It wasn't Max. Oh, dear. It was Checo! Sergio Perez. Fantastic stuff, Checo. A great drive and a great victory this weekend, it must be said. Max had his problems, so it was up to Sergio to deliver the pole position lap time, and pole position he did deliver. At the start, he allowed Alonso to slip through at the start, not getting a great launch off the line, did Sergio, and had to drop back into second place. But as soon as that DRS became available, just a few laps in, he closed the gap, overtook him, and then he led for the rest of it, didn't he? So that was really that. It was a little bit of a battle between the two Red Bulls towards the end there for the fastest lap point. Sergio Perez decided he was going to obey the team orders of, oh no, just keep doing 33 zeros, Checo, while Max was like, no, I'm having that championship point. And that means that Max still leads the championship by that one solitary World Championship point over Checo. So yeah, maybe in future Checo needs to go, do you know what? I'm just going to push on the last lap and I need to get the fastest lap point. If he gets it, he gets it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But just by following team orders, it didn't happen, did it? We know what Max is like. So for Sergio Perez this weekend, I'm going to award him a 9.5 out of 10. It's not a perfect 10 for me, just based on the fact that he did lose out that fastest lap point because he decided to stick with the team orders, which is fair enough. I totally understand why he stuck with the team orders. He thought, well, I'm not pushing, so neither is Max. But you need to understand that the title fight is just between these two Red Bulls. And you know for a fact that Max never listens to team orders, does it? Remember Brazil, Checo? Remember Brazil? Exactly. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm knocking him a little point off of that, and then I'm knocking him like a quarter of a point off as well for the fact that he did lose out to the start to Alonso. In theory, it should have just been away and gone for Checo, really. But a little bit of a slow start for Checo meant he did lose out to Alonso and just made his life ever so slightly more difficult, didn't he? But having said that, he really did have the measure in some respects to Max during that race, because after that safety car period, he drove a great race. He managed to pull the gap and extend the gap over Alonso and Russell. Max eventually got past him, and there was a 5-second gap, and it was pretty much the 5-second gap till the end. So yeah, I do feel it's a great drive by Checo, but not just a perfect 10. So yeah, 9.5 to Checo. Then we come to Max Verstappen. Here he is. After his gearbox troubles in qualifying, yeah, it was an unfortunate way to see him out there. It was the fastest car by miles in all practice sessions. You know, Max, had he managed to get a lap in, would have probably been, what, 2-3 tenths ahead of Checo for that pole position time? I'm sure of it. We know the car's built around Max, and we know that Max is just on top form at the moment. As it was, though, 15th place. He didn't make the greatest of starts, though, did he? Only climbed up to around 13th or 12th, didn't he, behind the Haasers for a brief period. Eventually got past those, and then the safety car period where Stroll stopped on track meant that that's where Max gained all his time. He was able to, of course, get a free pit stop, bunch himself up to the back of the pack, and came out in that position and net 4th, didn't he? He was already 4th then at that point after that safety car period, so it really played into Max's hands, did that. And yeah, there you go. It was a nice easy pass over Russell, nice easy pass over Alonso, and then he just stayed second for the remainder of the race, and as we mentioned already with the fastest lap point, disobeying team orders on the final lap to keep at 33 zeros and push that car to the limits. It wasn't without its issues though, was he? He was expecting something wrong with the drive shaft again, wasn't he? He was saying, oh, you know, there's grumbling, there's a weird noise, I'm getting weird vibes and vibrations. He's giving me good vibrations. Yeah, well, it weren't good vibrations, was it? Bad vibrations. But nonetheless, on the final lap, he decided, sod it, I'm getting that fastest lap point. And he did. So yeah, there you go. Wasn't without his whinging though at the end, was it? Oh no, and his dad's a bit of a cockend as well, isn't he? Oh no. It all came a bit undone pre-race because he was like, no, I'm not happy to finish second actually. I'm not happy to finish second. Like, fucking hell, what's happened to you, you stroppy bastard? So yeah, I'm knocking him a point off for that because I thought it was a great drive. It was a smart drive because I was expecting him to try go lunging up the inside of everyone and getting it all wrong, getting himself his knickers in a twist and a panic like we saw at Singapore last year, and just throwing it all away, but he didn't. A measured drive and cheekily nicked that fastest lap point off him. I weren't going to penalise him for that, but I am knocking him 1 point off. And he's getting 9. And people are going to say, yeah, that's very lenient. And yes, it is, but it comes with a warning, Max. Because I don't want you whinging in a race, and I don't want you whinging after a race. And if your dad is whinging on your behalf, then I'm going to start penalising you for it because Jos Verstappen is an absolute knob. That's my decision, and I'm sticking with it. So yeah, that's my opinion on the matter. And yeah, if there's any more moaning coming forward from the fact that you finished second in a race that you started 15th, then yeah, you can frig off. So yeah, there we go. 9 points to Max Verstappen with a warning. Keep your gob shut and tell your dad to keep your gob shut as well, otherwise you're going to be serving penalties on this crawl room rather rapidly. Next up in third place we come to Fernando Alonso. Oh, sorry, hang on 1 second. Got a phone call, apologies. Give me a second. Hello? Oh, you're joking. A 10-second time penalty. So that means he's fourth now. Oh, well, I suppose rules are rules, aren't they, if the jack was touching the car. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. I'll inform the guys. So, in third place it is George of the Russell. Watch out for that top 5. Oh, God, sorry. Apologies. The phone's ringing again. Hello again. Oh, you've reversed the penalty, have you? Right. And why have you reversed the penalty? Oh, right, okay, because there wasn't actually a ruling that the jacks couldn't touch the car anyway. Yeah. Oh, and you investigated it on the final lap of the race. Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, making yourself look like a bit of an idiot, really, aren't you? I'm talking to people on this series. It's proper serious, you know, this. Yeah. Yeah, I know Enrique Bernaldi was the driver steward. I've mentioned that in previous videos, but that's not exactly his fault, is it? So, who's third? Just tell me who's third. Right, and if I get any more phone calls from you, we're through. Alright, bye. Unbelievable. So, in third place, it is Fernando Alonso. There he is. He had it, and then it took him away from him, and then he had it again. Unbelievable. The FIA need to sort their shit out, don't they? So, once again, we had an outer position car at the start, which netted him a 5-second time penalty. Which he served during the pit stop under the safety car, and then that was it. It was fine. Everything was fine. Then we started to get rumours around lap 46, lap 47, that, oh, Alonso's potentially under investigation here for not serving the 5-second time penalty incorrectly. And then on the final lap of the race, it was official that it was under investigation for not serving the time penalty correctly. So then we had a podium celebration with Alonso on it. And then we had behind the scenes where Alonso was given a 10-second time penalty post-race. So that meant that George was given the trophy. And then we had it a few hours later where Aston Martin appealed and then they gave the trophy back to Alonso. Is this all familiar? I'm sure we've seen this before in USA just last year with Alonso with the wing mirror falling off and 30 seconds given to him and then taken off him. Don't they just hate Alonso? I don't know what it is, but yeah, it was an absolute farce, wasn't it? The FIA need to sort their shit out because that was a joke. An absolute joke. How on earth can a car pit on lap 19 and then on the last lap of the race you decide that, actually, no, that needs looking at? Fucking thick. Unbelievable. So yeah, Absolute piss take, but here he is nonetheless. Fernando Alonso finishes 3rd place, gets his podium, gets his trophy back. He still enjoyed the champagne at least though, didn't he? And yeah, I mean overall Alonso's race was a great one, wasn't it? Qualified 3rd, lined up 2nd as a result of Charles's penalty. So yeah, lined up 2nd, got through, got past on Checo, led a couple of laps of the race. His first time leading a race since 2012, was it Hockenheim or something daft like that? Crazy, crazy time ago. Yeah, so led some laps, and then just stayed a stable 3rd from out there after Perez and Max got past him. And then we had this bullshit penalties afterwards and everything, which wasn't really his fault. But such is life, there we go. So yeah, for Fernando Alonso, I'm going to award him 8.5 on the cruel room. And you'd be thinking, a little bit harsh that. And it is, because at the end of the day, he was out of position in the grid box, and this is what created the whole debacle once again. I'm not saying what the FIA did was right, because it certainly wasn't. You know, you need to read your own chuffing rule books before you put things under investigations. And if you are putting things under investigation, then at least do it within a respectable period of time where the team can recover the situation, or know they're facing another penalty, or have chance to appeal it before the race even ends. Not just announce it on the last lap. Stupid, stupid, stupid. And once again makes it look like a chuffing joke. It's all this drive to survive drama bullshit, I'm convinced. It's doing my tits in. But there we go, nonetheless. So, for Fernando Alonso, 8.5 as mentioned. Got to knock him a point and a half off for the confusion and disruption that was caused as a result of him being out of position on the grid box, unfortunately. But yeah, at least it's no Latifi of the week for him, is it? Unlike a certain someone last race out. But yeah, 2 races now, 2 penalties, and then 2 penalties not served correctly. Maybe starting to look like an FIA problem as opposed to a team and a driver problem, perhaps. Anyway, we'll see. But yeah, 8.5 to Alonso. Then we do eventually come to George of the Russell. Watch out for that top 5. Here he is. Finally, I get to say it. I finally get to say it. Finishing 4th place, then 3rd, then 4th again. And that's no disrespect to George. You know what? He had a great race overall, didn't he? He had a great qualifying and a great race. It was solid. It was a solid weekend for him. Bahrain, he looked a little bit meh, didn't he? Looked a little bit meh. But this time around, he drove a great race overall. I can't say it was anything spectacular in terms of, you know, there were no audacious dives. They weren't creating any drama. There were no overtaking. But it was just solid. And for me personally, and people might think this is British bias, I know it's going to come through again, but yeah, I personally think that was worthy of a full 10 points for me, because he stayed ahead of Hamilton. Yes, I know Hamilton was on the alternate strategy, but he was told you need to let Hamilton by when Hamilton was on the mediums and George was on the hard compound mid-race. And he just went, well, what about Alonso's penalty? And they went, well, he served it. Well, so we thought, and then he didn't. And then anyway, but yeah, he's already served it. Well, why didn't you tell me? And then what did he do? Get his foot down and just fucked off. He left Hamilton for dead and was like, yeah, he might have softer compound tyres than me, but I'm all right. I'm all right in 4th. And yeah, that was that. So yeah, for me personally, a perfect 10 for George. He did disobey team orders in that respect to not letting Hamilton through, but what were they going to gain by it? Absolutely nothing by the looks of it. George did have the measure of Hamilton this weekend, despite the different strategies, I feel. And yeah, overall, perfect 10 to George Russell. Then we come to Sir Lewis Hamilton, of course, finishing in 5th place in the Mercedes. And yeah, what could be said for his race overall? He finished 5th as a result of a great strategy in theory by Mercedes, because they were able to get the overcut on those Ferraris, because Hamilton started the race down in 7th, was it? As a result of Leclerc's penalty. And then he was able to get ahead of the 2 Ferraris during the stops. That's how it worked, didn't he? He never really nearly overtook anyone on track. But overall this weekend, he just looked a bit lacklustre, didn't he? And this was the race last year where he didn't get out of Q1. So is it a circuit where he struggles more than George? You know, it seems like it is a circuit that's a bit of an anomaly for Hamilton. I know, obviously, of course, 2021 happened. That was just fucking chaos, wasn't it, between him and Max? But last year he struggled. This year didn't look to have the measure of George. I know it was a different strategy, but they had to put him on a different strategy because he was so much further behind. He was on the fringes of the top 10, whereas at least George was further up the road there. Top 3 in qualifying, top 4 elevated to 3rd. So yeah, They did something different with him and it didn't work. Yes, he finished 5th, but overall I don't think it was the best showing we've ever seen by Lewis. And for that reason, it is going to be a harsh, admittedly harsh, but I need to get cruel somewhere, 6.5 to Lewis. I don't think it was anything special, little bit better than average, but nothing great overall. You know, I think had we seen Lewis on his good day, he'd have been able to piss past George on those medium tyres, not need team orders, and he would have been able to keep up with George when George got his foot down. He didn't. He just was measling around there and stayed there, you know. The car's not fantastic, I know that, but we'd certainly expect a 7-time world champion to be putting George under a little bit more pressure than he did this weekend. So yeah, for me, I felt it was lacklustre by Hamilton, and that's why it's 6.5. Then we come to Carlos Sainz, smooth operator, smooth operator. Well, it was smooth, but it was very steady, wasn't it? He was finishing in P6. My God, that Ferrari, if it's not unreliable, it's slow. Jesus Christ. They were nowhere this weekend at all. And they were saying that they must have turned something down for race pace overall, because qualifying was good, but wasn't brilliant, was it? You know, I think Leclerc had a stonking lap, really. But throughout the practice sessions, it looked like they were turning the engine down a little bit. And during a race run, no pace at all. You know, they couldn't keep up with the Mercedes that they were quite happily beating at Bahrain until the problems arose for Leclerc, and then Sainz's tyres dropped off. But, you know, they had a measure for Mercedes quite happily at Bahrain, and here they were, not even being able to get close to him. You know, there was no charge through the field from Sainz or Leclerc this weekend, and they are just finishing a measly 6th and 7th. Deary me. Deary me. So yeah, for Carlos Sainz, probably a little bit harsh this based on the car he had, but he didn't do anything spectacular, didn't do anything special, and it's a solid 7. Solid 7s all the way for a car that's a bit meh, and he didn't have the best race weekend overall. And I still think, judging by how I thought Hamilton's race wasn't great, he should have really beat him. That's how I see it anyway. But yeah, a solid 7 to Carlos Sainz. I think I've given him a little bit of a sympathy point there for the car that he's in, because that Ferrari just looks shit all round. And when it does look good, it breaks down. So there we go. 7 to Sainz. And then we come to Sha-la-la. Oh, sha-la-la. Sacre bleu, sha-la-la. I've got a feeling I'm going to be saying sacre bleu quite a lot this season as well. Unbelievable stuff. He had a great lap in qualifying, didn't he? But a 10-place grid drop, because he's already used all his battery units that he's allowed to for the season. How many more penalties are going to come from that? We've used 2. And he's allocated 2 in one race weekend in Bahrain. We're on to the 3rd already. Brilliant. Well done, Ferrari. You've out-Ferrari'd yourself this time around. So, Shalala qualified P2. A stunning lap. Great lap, really. He did a great job there. Was within 2/10, wasn't he, of Perez? And then, in the race, of course, started 12th. Got to 7th. And there we go. That was it. It was on the soft compound tyre and made that really last, actually. One of the few anomalies on the grid there, because everyone else started on the mediums pretty much. But Leclerc on the softs. Drove a great race overall. You know, I think he did a decent job. And then he just got stuck in 7th. And that were that. You know, it just, like, disappointing, really. But a bit like Sainz, you know, I can't really knock him because he didn't do anything wrong. The car was just shite. So for Chalala, it's going to be 8 points on the cruel room to him, because that qualifying lap was a lot better than I was expecting based on their practice pace. And the race pace overall, if Sainz only finished 6th with no penalty, Leclerc 7th, yeah, I can't knock him for doing the best job he could with the car he had. Just wasn't spectacular. I'd have given him a lot more points had he finished ahead of Sainz. But yeah, I think 8 points is fair for where he finished with the car he's got. So yeah, 8 points to Sha-la-la. And then we come to Esteban Ocon. And what could be said for this race weekend overall? Well, it was a vast improvement on Bahrain, wasn't it? The low expectations of Bahrain. I mean, Christ, how could it have sunk any lower from there? Imagine if Saudi was worse than Bahrain. How bad are we talking? You know, how bad are we actually talking for him to be able to do a worse job? But thankfully he didn't, and thankfully I don't have to talk about that, because I think I'd have been scratching my head already. But yeah, overall here he is finishing 8th place, qualified ahead of his teammate, finished ahead of his teammate, had a good race overall. You know, there were some nice battles, there were some nice duels there, and realistically, 8th place, judging by the rest of the pace of the cars ahead, is the best that Alpine's going to get at the moment. You know, I think the Alpine and Alfa Romeo and McLaren, if they get the shit together, and Haas are really just fighting over 9th and 10th, to be fair. So the fact that Ocon manages to benefit from Stroll's retirement, elevate himself to 8th, solid 4 points on the board, deservedly so. Great job, great qualifying, great race. Nothing went wrong. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. It's going to be 9 points for me. 9 points on the crawl room to Esteban Ocon. A solid job all round, I think. Next up is Ocon's teammate, of course. It's Pierre Gasly. And what could be said for Gasly overall? At least he got into Q3 this time. He wasn't eliminated in Q1, but didn't make his charge through the field, did he? He was unable to. Qualifying in Q3 means where you qualify. Really, that's only where you're going to stay. Didn't have a great qualifying, though, in that Q3 session, did he? Only started 10th, so last of those Q3 runners. But here he is, elevated to 9th as a result of Stroll's retirement, finishing in 1 place behind his teammate. Again, I think it's the best sort of job he can do with the car he's got, but he was out-qualified and out-raced by his teammate, so it's going to be 8 points to Pierre Gasly for that. And, yeah, the points will become more understood as we get further on in the season, see how good the cars are on and off the track, you know, as each race weekend progresses, who are the stayers in the points, who are the risers and fallers, who has a good weekend then vanishes. But for now, I think 8 points is fair for Pierre Gasly for that drive overall. It was solid, and yeah, did the best job he could with the car he got, but Ocon did a slightly better job. And then the final points-paying position went the way of Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Hallelujah! Haas have scored a point. Fantastic stuff. Kevin Magnussen provided the real only excitement towards the end of the race, didn't he? Lunging it up the inside of Yuki Tsunoda, then lunging it round the outside of Yuki Tsunoda, and then eventually getting through on the 3rd or 4th attempt even, wasn't it? It was quite a way into the race. He kept lunging and then lost all the time he'd made up, and then had to catch up again and then try and have another go, then lost all the time again, then caught up again, then had another go and lost all the time. It was never ending, wasn't it, really? But yeah, for Kevin Magnussen, he's fixed up Haas's first point. They've looked like they could be on the fringes here. And yeah, you know, Kevin Magnussen overall, it was a solid enough qualifying, and the race, again, solid enough, I suppose. And picking up a point is well deserved. So for Kevin Magnussen, I'm going to score him a 9, if I can count, 9.5 on the crawl room to him. And I'm docking him the half a point just because he made himself a lot more hard work than needed to be. All those failed attempts at trying to overtake Yuki Tsunoda, had he just got past him around the first go, could he have been nibbling on the back of Gasly as it came towards the end of the race? Perhaps, because as soon as Magnussen got ahead of Tsunoda, DRS wasn't even a worry for him because he'd just gone. It was like 1.5 seconds ahead of Tsunoda immediately after the overtake. So, yeah, had he got past him sooner, maybe he could have been chomping at the bit of one of those Alpines ahead. But we're never going to know. But at least he did secure a point for Haas, and that's a well-earned point for them. So, yeah, Kevin Magnussen, 9.5 on the crawl room. As mentioned, just finishing outside the points in P11, it is Yuki Tsunoda. Put up a valiant effort against K-Mag, didn't he? He tried every which way, and K-Mag was attempting several times and locking up and running wide, and you think, hang on a minute, Tsunoda's keeping his cool here, and K-Mag isn't. He could really fend him off, but he just, at the end, he just ran out of tyres. And that was that, you know. It was an early stop for Tsunoda, if I remember rightly, and then that meant that when the safety car came out, he didn't have to stop, and he elevated himself up to the 9th place, 10th place area, wasn't it? And then that's where he stayed throughout the majority of the race, apart from when Kevin Magnussen finally got through in the latter few laps of the race. Big shame, really, for Tsunoda to miss out on points, and for AlphaTauri to miss out on points as well, because they did deserve it, but at the same time, so did Haas, so did K-Mag, so one of those things overall. Yuki Tsunoda, though, the best we've seen of him for quite a while, I must say. I was impressed by that drive. He kept himself cool under pressure, but in the end, the tyres gave way. Not his fault at all, and did a solid job. 8.5 to Yuki Tsunoda is the fairest I think I'm going to get. Out in Q1 just, which was unfortunate, but that's the pace of that AlphaTauri. A great strategy by the team, and then kept himself in that points-paying position really as long as he could. Yeah, 8.5 to Yuki. And then we come to Nico Hulkenberg, as Daniel Ricciardo would say. And here he is finishing in 12th place after a solid qualifying once again, just missing out on the Q3 times once again, this time due to having a lap deleted for track limits. Big shame that really, but here he is finishing 12th. It was a solid race, didn't get any wing damage like he did in Bahrain, so his race wasn't over early on, and was keeping in touch with Kevin Magnussen for throughout the most of it, but then he just faded away as K-Mag charged through and secured that point. Hulkenberg wasn't really close to K-Mag towards the end there, couldn't mount a serious attack. If it had been 2 Hasses after a AlphaTauri, we could have maybe seen one slip through a bit sooner, but as it was, yeah, Hulkenberg slipped away and was lucky to finish ahead of the cars behind him, really. So, yeah, Hulkenberg, it's going to be 6 points. Potentially harsh 6 there, but he's come back into the championship, and I know he's had a season away apart from a couple of one-off guest drives. You know, he's had a couple of seasons away, but he's come back, and he does seem to be a lot more structured, a lot more measured, but he just doesn't seem to be that rounded and finessed. You know, we'd have been seeing Hulkenberg in that points-paying position, you know, just a season ago or 2 seasons ago. It would have been Hulkenberg picking that point up and not K-Mag. So I think I'm slightly disappointed in Hulkenberg that it was K-Mag that did the first point. Although both on paper, I would say, are very evenly matched, really. Both solid, consistent drivers. But, you know, Hulkenberg had that lap deleted in Q3. In Q2, that would have seen him into Q3. You know, just a little silly error sliding through there. He's not a rookie. He knows what needs to be done, you know. And, yeah, I think a solid 6 is as good as it's going to get for Hulkenberg. And I'd really like to see him score points in Australia. You know, it's a circuit he knows well, at least, this time around. Yeah, a lot of experience there, and I hope it pays off for him. I hope it pays off for us. But for now, 6 points to Hulk. Then we come to Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo, as mentioned, jumping at the bit there towards the end of Hulkenberg's stint, so nearly nabbed P12. And Zhou Guanyu, for me, was a great drive this weekend. It really was. He was on the fringes of the points for the first part of the race. In fact, he was up as 10th, wasn't it? His starts have been the difficult one and what have been really letting him down in last season and last race as well, especially. But this time around, he got his elbows out. He got round a few cars and got himself into that points-paying position. Fantastic stuff. Alfa Romeo opted for an early pit stop, which was fair enough. No one knew the safety car was going to come out. And then when the safety car did come out, they pitted the Alfa Romeos again. So then that meant that they were compromised and down at the back of the field because they'd had 2 stops for everyone's 1. So that was a little bit unusual. And then he was left out there with the tyres he had. And I think he came out the pits around 15th, and there he ended up 13th. Overall, I think the team let him down more than he let the team down, because for me, Zhou drove really well this weekend. He outqualified his teammate and outraced his teammate. So for me, they're 2 big ticks already. And a lot of people don't like Zhou, or not that they don't like Zhou, but they don't feel he has the ability and what it takes to be a Formula 1 driver. Well, I think once again this weekend, he's proven that he does deserve this seat in Alfa Romeo. And yeah, the car maybe had the pace for top 10. He proved that, but I think the team let him down with the strategy overall. So for me, Zhou Guanyu is going to be a solid 8 points on the board to him. Great qualifying, great drive. You know, I'm not saying it was anything stunning, but there were some good moves he made. I think there was one move in particular around the outside of Logan Sargeant that was really good, if I remember that rightly. Or it might have been Albon before he retired. But nonetheless, you know, pulled off some good overtakes, had a great start, which has been one of his weaknesses. And I hope that gives him confidence going forward, because if he can have the good starts going forward, and then the team get the strategy right, he could be a point scorer, you know, top 10 finisher regularly. So, yeah, fingers crossed for Zhou. I really do like him. I think he's a nice guy, and I think this was one of his best drives so far in Formula 1. And it's a shame it didn't come to points, but here he is. Unlucky 13th, and it really was unlucky. But here he is. 8 points on the Crawl Room. I've seen you, Zhou. Then we come to Nyck de Vries. Oh, Nick, I don't know what to say about this one, to be honest. The car doesn't look great, does it? That AlphaTauri is struggling. He almost got through into Q2, but failed at the final hurdle. Lined up 19th, was it? 18th? It wasn't great. And then in the race, it was just, you know, the strategy didn't fall his way like it did for Tsunoda, and he was battling away towards the end there, but there was nothing he could do, really. He was 14th, and that's where he stayed. It's difficult because there's not really a backmarker team now. You know, we know that the AlphaTauri is not great. We know that the Williams isn't the best car, but there's no backmarker team because you can get a strategy right and look at Tsunoda, you're almost on the fringes of points. So, yeah, just didn't fall his way once again. You know, De Vries was left out to dry at Bahrain last time out, and here he is left out to dry again in some respects. Didn't have the better strategy of the two drivers. And, yeah, it'd be nice to see him get some luck go his way. You know, find a little bit more pace in the car as well, the team as well as the driver, and see what happens. But, yeah, for now, Nyck de Vries, I'm going to give him a solid 7. A solid 7, I think, is fair. It's not a great car, you know, and he wasn't, again, he was compromised by the strategy that he was on, which is a shame. So, yeah, Nyck de Vries, a solid 7 for now. We'll keep judging how his race performances carry on throughout the season, and then we can score him a little bit more accordingly as we get on. But let's not forget, he is still a rookie. Then we come to the first of the McLarens, and it is Oscar Piastri. Here he is. Here he is, Oscar Piastri. And what type of pastry is he this week? Is he a shoe? Not really sure. What's your favourite pastry, actually? I think mine's a flaky pastry. I do love a good flaky pastry. Ooh, on a sausage roll. Anyway, that's where the frig am I going with that? Anyway, Oscar Piastri. Fantastic effort, really, this weekend, for qualifying especially. Got that car inside the top 10 and qualified in 9th. Stunning effort. Elevated to 8th with Charles Leclerc's penalties. And then it just all came undone at the start, didn't he? He just got clipped by one of the Alpines, didn't he? As he was going around the outside of that turn 2 section, the Alpine just came over on him. The slightest touch and the front wing just went bleh, and just fell over on itself, and that was it. He had to pit, and then from there, damage done. A 15-second pit stop. You're at the back. You can't recover. It was a great shame. But great to see him battling towards the end there with Logan Sargeant and his teammate, of course, Lando. Overall, again, I'm going to score him same as Nyck de Vries, really. There were signs of brilliance there. There were signs of, like, this kid's good. You know, that qualifying effort especially. And for it to just all come undone on lap 1. And it wasn't really his fault. It wasn't a needless lunge. It was just a racing incident. Too many cars going through the same corner at the same time. A lap 1 incident. Big, big shame. Big, big consequences. And McLaren still last in the championship. And, yeah. Oh, dear. But, yeah. For Oscar Piastri, it's going to be a solid 7. Then we come to Logan Sargeant, and after a cracking drive in Bahrain, it sort of came undone a little bit here, didn't it? The scruffiest of qualifying sessions, that. I mean, he had more drama in qualifying than what happened throughout the entirety of the race, really, didn't he? We had a lap time deleted for track limits, then we had a spin. Then we went back out there, and then we had another spin, did we? I can't remember what happened the last time, but either way, he ended up not setting a lap time at all, and had to get permission to start the race because he technically didn't qualify within the 107% rule. I mean, of course he was going to start the race, you know, the 107% rule is pretty much redundant now. But yeah, it was just all a bit of a shame, wasn't it? Because that lap that got deleted would have seen him into Q2, so unfortunate. It could have been his second appearance in 2 races into Q2, but as it stands, it wasn't, because he had the identical lap time with Norris last time out, and this time around, track limits. A spin, how we didn't hit the wall, I don't know. And then in the race overall, it was a fighting start, wasn't it? It were doing well at the beginning, got as high as 13th, and it looked like the Williams could scrape a point perhaps. Albon dropped out, and you think, well, maybe a little bit more unlikely with Logan at this stage with his inexperience, but still doing a solid job. And then he just gradually tumbled down the order. The tyres failed him. You know, he made a couple of mistakes here and there, cutting the corner at turn 22, 23 on the runoff. It was just all a bit scruffy, wasn't it? He made a couple of mistakes. The car got a little bit twitchy, a little bit sideways. You know, it was great experience for him to be racing around with the McLarens there towards the end of the race, but he'd have wanted a lot more. So yeah, for Logan Sargeant, it's going to be 4 points on the cruel room to him. Possibly the harshest score I've given so far. Not just in terms of overall points, but in terms of his inexperience, his rookie. But, you know, I think it's a fighting, it's encouraging, you know. He has got flashes of brilliance there. A lot more than what people expected him to have. He just couldn't get it together this weekend, and that were a shame. So, yeah, it's not a Latifi of the week by any stretch of the imagination. But, you know, a solid 4 for me is as good as that can go. But, yeah, Logan, keep it up, because Australia, I'm hoping it could be points. Fingers crossed. And then we come to Lando Norris.
Give me an L. Give me an A. Give me a T. Give me an I. Give me an F. Give me an I. What does that spell? Goat. Bleh.
Oh, I don't think people were expecting that, were they? Well. Let me give my reasoning to it. Not that I really care what other people think, but you know, Lando Norris for me, you know, it was a difficult weekend, wasn't it? He made that race so much harder for himself already by clipping the wall in qualifying and not setting a representative lap time in theory. You know, he got one banker lap in and then he clipped the wall on the final corner, broke his track rod, and ended up starting 19th in the race. Not ideal, is it? Not what they needed. Then, of all things, there's only one car that got damaged in that race at the start, and that was Oscar Piastri, his teammate. Now, what car would hit Oscar Piastri's debris? There's another 19 cars. Oh no, it had to be the other McLaren, Lando Norris, didn't it? That damaged his wing. So, yeah, his race was compromised due to no fault of his own in terms of the race perspective. But had he qualified where or near, in theory he should have been ahead of where Piastri was. Let's not forget that. You know, Norris had the ability, if Piastri had the ability to qualify 9th in that car, Lando should have been inside the top 10 as well. And then what happened in the race wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have hit the debris because he'd have already been ahead of him. And then he could have scored points. But as it were, he compromised himself by that lowly grid position, picked up damage, which wouldn't have happened had he been better at qualifying. And then in the race, in the end, he just literally said in the press conference afterwards, oh yeah, I just let him through. Like, what's that defeatist attitude, Lando? I just let Oscar through. Like, well, if it were puff points, it'd be different. Well, yeah, I know, but at least fight. You know, have a bit of fight. I know the car's shit, Lando, and I know the fact that the drivers at the minute, no word of a lie, you look at the driver standings at the moment. 19th and 20th at the moment is Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. How unbelievable is that? That is mad, isn't it? So yeah, you know, I know he's frustrated, but at least get a bit of a fight in you, you know, a bit of fire in your belly. And yeah, for me, I was just a little bit disappointed overall. Oscar had a great start, you know, great weekend overall. Unfortunately, it came undone with an unfortunate incident. Norris's weekend came undone due to an unfortunate incident, but he didn't put himself in a good position to start with, did he? So yeah, for me, a harsh Latifi of the week, but someone has to get it, and it's Lando. Then, last of the runners, it is Valtteri Bottas, finishing 18th place overall, 50 seconds behind the next car. And again, you know, he'd not had a great race weekend overall, had he? It was a bad qualifying, out-qualified by Zhou, and was being outraced by Zhou as well. But why, oh why, oh why, have I let Valtteri Bottas off? Well, I'll tell you for why. Because the car was heavily damaged. So it wasn't just, I found this out afterwards, so, you know, feel free to research it yourself. It wasn't just Lando Norris that picked up Oscar Piastri's damage, the bit of wing. It was also Bottas, and similar to what happened to Max at Silverstone. Was it last year where he got Mick Schumacher's wing, or someone's part of the wing, wedged underneath the barge board? The same thing happened to Bottas. And yeah, while I could go slapping a Latifi on the week to Bottas, his race was compromised a lot more heavily than Lando's was. I mean, how can you be 2.2 seconds off the pace with soft tyres on the car? Something was fundamentally wrong with it. And yeah, it happened early in the race as well. But Bottas, for me, yeah, it was a bad qualifying, but it's an Alfa Romeo, you know, it was a little bit more expected to be further down the field. And, you know, I do feel a little bit harsh to Lando, but Bottas, for me, I think, has delivered a great race in Bahrain. And if this is his dud weekend, where it was heavily compromised by damage throughout the entirety of the race, you know, Norris, once he got his wing fixed, could put his foot down. Bottas was screwed. You know, it was a big, big shame for Bottas in that respect. So, yeah, overall, Valtteri Bottas, 3 points. It's nothing special. You know, it was outdriven and out-qualified by Zhou this weekend. But I don't think it's Latifi-worthy when you've got a hindered car, heavily hindered as well at that, from early in the race. So, yeah, there you go. 3 points to Valtteri Bottas. A shame, but, you know, he had a good Bahrain at least. Then we come to the first of the retirements on this list, the last that happened in the race, of course, and it is Alex Albon. Oh, Alex. Oh, dear. You know, again, as we're saying, Williams looked like they could have had some good pace this weekend. Unfortunate that both cars dropped out in Q1. Alex just missing out. A time not quite good enough, so he could have been out-qualified by Logan Sargeant there. And then in the race was running around in like 12th, 11th area, mixing it up with the Hassers, and then had brake failure, which was a big, big shame. Yeah, overall, as you know, for the retirements, I can only score him a maximum of 5 points. And for Alex Albon this weekend, I'm going to award him 4 out of the maximum of 5. Just based on the fact that, you know, Logan, had he kept that lap in qualifying, would have out-qualified him. Albon was always going out in Q1 with the lap times he did, so that was a bit of a shame to see. Got it all together in the race though, and was doing really, really well, as mentioned, on the fringes of the points. You know, could have been battling around with the K-Mag Tsunoda situation perhaps, had it not been for that failure, but we're never going to know. So yeah, out of the maximum of 5, 4 points to Alex Albon. And then last but by no means least, it is Lance. Stop the car, stop on the track. Stop on the track, Lance, stop on the track. That was a little bit sceptical of that team radio message, I've got to be honest with you. Stop the car, Lance, stop the car, stop on the track. Like, hang on a minute, stop on the track? As for the safety car itself, was it really warranted? I don't think it was it? It was behind the barrier and quite nicely parked in by Lance there. He did a great job. The over-exuberant fire extinguisher marshals just deciding they're going to squirt the entire front end of the car in foam. I'm sure the team will be very happy with that when they come back and the fucking paint and vinyl's been dissolved and corroded with that corrosive shit on it. But yeah, overall, you know, Lance this weekend, out-qualified, out-driven by Alonso. The strategy was bad that he was on as well, wasn't it? That wasn't a great call by Aston Martin. But yeah, stop the car, Lance, stop the car on track, and there you go. So we didn't really hear a problem on the overall audio of the car as well on board as it was breaking down. Yeah, so we'll wait to see what the investigation reveals in that. I'm sure it'll be some sort of bullshit sensor or something. But yeah, I think it was just a way to get Alonso to serve his 5-second time penalty relatively scot-free. And if it was, it works. So yeah, there you go. So for Lance Stroll, out of the maximum of 5 I can give him for a retirement, he's getting 3.5. Yeah, I don't think he did a good job of Alex overall, I guess, you know. Out-qualified, out-raced by his teammate, didn't really have the best strategy. It was just all going a bit wrong for Lance, wasn't it? Yeah, so yeah, 3.5 to Lance Stroll overall. So there we have it then, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The scoreboard updated with these scores are on the screen now for you to take a look at. As can be seen, that is the table for the drivers, what I've scored in each individual driver. And then if you want to take a look at the updated standings, the leaderboard overall, it's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Green is a riser, red is a faller, and blue, that means they stayed in the same position they were last weekend. So yes, let me know where your favourite driver is. Can you see him going up? Can you see him going down? And yeah, overall, let me know what your thoughts and feedback were on that race, because I thought it was a little bit dull, a little bit average. It was okay, it wasn't anything special, and then the FIA just made a mess of it at the end like they usually do anyway, because they're absolute knobs. A massive thanks as always go out to Dan of Mushy Gaming, formerly Mushy Gaming. He's called himself Dan Bartlett now. I think he's called himself his own name on YouTube. But massive thanks to Dan as always for providing me with the intro, the scoreboards that you see on the screen now, and also for the icons that you see for the drivers in the top corner as I talk about them. Thanks go out to Dominic Orlando as well for providing me with the Latifi of the Week sketch. And, of course, Dave, F1 Games PlayStation. He might not be having a speaking role this year around, but he still edits those Latifi skits for me and provides them for me. So thank you very much to all three guys for making this series so special. I'll see you all in a couple of weeks' time then for the Australian Grand Prix. Look forward to seeing you there, and I hope it's an exciting Grand Prix. Let's wait and see. Fingers crossed. Come on, let's have a good one. Let's have some different drivers on the podium, and yeah, let's see what happens. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.